Hey, can anybody hear me? I don't know if I'm on or not, and I can't get the intro to play. Been having a lot of difficulty. Just let me know if you're hearing me, and I'll know whether to do the show or not because something ain't right at all. Um, so, if anybody's hearing me, I'm on. Okay, thanks, Gigi. Geez, I have not a clue what's happening. Okay, thank you all. Um, I have to tell you this, I'm not going to be able to take calls today. That absolutely I couldn't work. And I had not a clue whether I could even get on. And my intro won't play. My intro won't play. Um, I'm being asked to do things that I've never seen before, so I don't know what's happening. Anyway, so heck with that. It's you, it's me, we're on, that's good. Sorry, just no calls. Cannot do. Uh, Boy, I was warned that stuff happens, and I'm just glad I didn't panic. Hey, there's lots of stuff to talk about. By the way, just breaking news. Don't know if you guys saw it. Man, I'm sure Donald Trump really gives a damn that this Weisselberg guy, Alan Weisselberg, the guy who was given to Trump by his dad. Uh, I guess his father wanted Weisselberg to make sure Donald didn't totally screw everything up. And he was just sentenced this morning to 5 more months in jail. He's already served time at that wonderful place called Rikers. This is an old man, worked for the Trumps for over 50 years. Um, and he lied. He committed another crime, trying to shield uh, Don, little Donnie. And he's going to Rikers for 5 more months for lying under oath to the Attorney General of New York State. It's just not that I'm going to waste a lot of time on feeling sorry for this guy. I mean, he's made his choices, but it's hard to comprehend how someone can be so loyal to a person who exhibits no loyalty in return. None. I mean, you think of how, for instance, Lindsey Graham, who has abased himself uh, for Trump, and Trump spent, I don't know, unbelievable amounts of his time yesterday venting about how Lindsey Graham was an idiot, a rhino, I don't know, a guy who has stuck with him forever. He makes one statement saying I think Graham said he respectfully disagreed with Trump on the abortion issue, that he didn't think it should be left to the states. And Trump went berserk. God, how anybody sticks with him is mind blowing to me. Just mind blowing. Uh, okay. But speaking about abortion, so all right, uh, Arizona, unbelievable. The Arizona Supreme Court said they couldn't do much but what they did because of the Dobbs decision and Roe v. Wade no longer being the law of the land. that there was absolutely nothing they could do to prevent a law that was on the books in the state of Arizona, but had lain dormant because of Roe v. Wade, will now go back into effect probably in about 2 weeks. And that law, ladies and gentlemen, as I'm sure you've heard by now, is pretty much, an abortion ban. The fascinating thing about this law that will now go into effect is that it was passed in 1864. So that's what, 160 years ago. Is that right? 160 years ago. Mind-boggling. This is a law that was passed when Arizona wasn't even a state. It was a territory. They had a kind of legislature which was made up of 27 white guys, and they met, and in the course of, I guess, a few days, like, passed all the laws that were going to govern the territory. In fact, they had paid one guy pretty much to write up the laws, and then they said, good job, and passed them. They also, in the same session, allowed 2 of their members to be divorced, don't ask. And they also, there were a few other little things they do. The legislature also passed this the same time they did the thing for abortion. They passed a law that said no black or mulatto or Indian, Mongolian, or Asiatic shall be permitted to testify in court against any white person. Wow. Obviously, that then meant that anybody who was not white had no recourse whatsoever to protect themselves, their family, their property in a court of law. Their word was not to have any standing whatsoever. It also, these 27 guys in Arizona 160 years ago, said that all marriages, I'm looking for this other, okay, all marriages between a white person and a black person shall be absolutely void. And they got around to some other things, just so you know. They defined the age of consent for sexual intercourse to be 10 years old. And they said that even if a younger child, like an 8-year-old, had consented, they still said that no, they couldn't, an 8-year-old couldn't consent, but a 10-year-old could. So, what we got here is in 1864, a legislature of 27 white guys created a body of laws that discriminated against everybody but white guys. A body of laws that discriminated against black people, brown people, considered girls able to, as at 10, able to consent to sex, and they had uniformly adopted a whole bunch of laws that were written by just one white guy who they trusted to know what he was doing. And here we are, 2024, and one of those laws passed by these 27 men, long dead and gone, these 27 racists, well, it's back in force, or will be in a few weeks. Of course, women couldn't vote then, right, as well. Only white men held sway. So here's the thing: women can vote now. Yeah, women can vote now. And it is unlikely that the voters of Arizona will have on their ballots in November the kind of referendum that, allows them to speak loudly about how they feel about this 160-year-old law. But it sure doesn't prevent them from showing up at the polls in November and knocking out every Republican they can get their hands on. Oh, my. So I don't know how you feel about the parents of this school shooter in Michigan being held liable and sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. They did not kill anybody, but two separate juries, because they were tried separately, two separate juries unanimously felt that because of their actions, or more correctly, inaction, people died. That if they had been parents who were conscientious, who were doing the right thing, 4 young people would be alive. And this, we have to understand, no matter how you might come down saying, wait, you mean so my kid does something and I go to jail? Well, this is a precedent now that has been set. Certainly a precedent set in Michigan, but it will go beyond the borders of Michigan as well. And it should serve, if it gets enough publicity, it should serve as a warning to all parents, to all people who have firearms in their homes, that if one of their firearms is used to kill, they could in fact find themselves in prison. This is starting to get at, I think, what should have been in place. If you want guns, fine, but understand that that gun and anything that it in the hands of anyone does, because your failure to secure it properly, that you will be legally liable. Now, I found myself, I was driving in my car a bit of a distance some time ago, and I happened to hear on my satellite radio part of the mother's trial. And it was mind-blowing. It really was. This kid, who's now serving life without hope of parole, their kid, their only child, was literally screaming for help. The day that he killed everybody, or the day before, not sure which, he had drawn this violent picture about killing a bunch of people. He had even written a plea for help on it. It was the same day, I'm remembering, because he did that in the morning. Someone at the school saw it. His mother was called into the school. and it was suggested she take him home, and she said, "Nah, he's okay, no problem." His father, helpfully, had bought him a gun, even though these two parents knew their kid, or unless they were just totally oblivious, was an unhappy, in fact, very depressed and suffering from mental illness child who they refused to get help for. They buy him a gun, they don't secure it properly, and he warned everybody. Only the school, like, at least seeing a warning, but still, the school knew, the parents refused to acknowledge it, and here you go. I um I don't know. So I think the good thing about this is that it will serve as a not only a precedent but a playbook for other prosecutors in other jurisdictions to tell the parents of these kids who kill, hey, you, if you give them guns, if you give them access to guns, if you do not secure them, if you fail in your adult responsibility for this child, and that child kills, then you've got blood on your hands. I think it's, I haven't, I think I read once somebody decrying this. Oh, if parents are to be held criminally responsible for anything their kid does, no. But I think this, two juries, all those disparate folk sitting in a jury box, hearing the both sides laid out, unanimously said these two people belong in jail. It was a shock. I don't think anybody expected this big a sentence. They've been held in jail for, I think, almost 2 years already, and I suspect that that time served will lessen the sentence somewhat. I mean, I think this is like the first time a court has done something after the horror of one of these all too frequent events that might give some people who are otherwise not inclined to see the gun in their home as anything but a protective device for them. It's going to force some folks to think, I don't know, might be a little more careful about this. Um, oh, thank you. I'm seeing a bunch of you have said, uh, okay, I'll read that later. Thank you. Those are some people giving me some good advice about what the hell's happening. Of course, I don't have a clue. All right, just a few more things in the justice realm. Trump lost that, it looks like he's going to trial. It looks like we're finally going to see the SOB in court. Now, stop and think about this. Stop and think on Monday. I don't think there are any more rabbits that he and his crack legal team can pull out of a hat um, to delay uh, justice in this case. But I want Jennifer Rubin had a great piece saying, um, this is the case that everybody said, oh, this is stupid. It's no big deal. Hush money to a porn star. No, 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 no. This is a big deal. The hush money to a porn star was done in an effort to get this guy elected president of the United States. And that makes this case not a small potatoes case. All the falsified documents made, all the lies, everything, that is criminal conduct. Imagine him now in court. We've seen him in court before, depictions of him in court. We know he glowers, he speaks out of turn. Well, this is going to be an actual trial in front of an actual jury, and he's going to have to sit there while witnesses, including his former consigliere, Michael Cohen, take the stand and testify against him. His pal, the former head of Playboy magazine, is it Playboy Penthouse? Whatever. No, National Enquirer, one of those fine publications. National Enquirer, this Pecker, he will be called. And unless he wants to perjure himself, he's going to say things that Trump doesn't want heard. So, knowing what we know about Donald Trump, can you imagine him sitting, not saying anything? He has no control. Can you imagine him, the defendant, sitting in this court, listening to people tell the truth? Something he, of course, does not have a lot of, well, it's not a realm he traffics in. And that truth is going to be damning. So let's say he can't control himself. He squawks, he screams. The jury in the box sees all this too. It's not a good look. It's the look of a man who thinks he's above the law, who's sure he's above the law, and will feel so belittled by being put in this position. I cannot begin to imagine him sitting still. He has zero self-control. So what happens? I imagine the first time the judge might say, Mr. Trump, uh-uh, uh-uh, and then admonishing his attorneys that if they can't control him, whatever. I think they should. You know what? I'm remembering, like in the Chicago 7 trial, I think it was Bobby Seale was like squawking. They gagged him in the trial. He was shackled and gagged. I don't think that's going to happen to Donald Trump, because no matter what the mythology is that, justice for all, it appears that there's a higher bar for justice for rich and powerful people. So this judge, Mershon, poor soul. And by the way, I have apparently the security arrangements for this trial are just extraordinary. I mean, these jurors will, again, like other cases where it's a mob boss case and stuff, they will be they will have to be very carefully guarded. It'll be fascinating to see this play out. Um, Rubin says that, theoretically, if Trump can't control himself, the judge can uh, put him in a holding cell that's right behind the courtroom where defendants who are not out on bail are often detained. And even if the judge maybe lets him bellow now and then, the fact is the jury's witnessing this, the judge is seeing it. It's the jury who's going to decide his fate, and it's the judge who's going to uh, figure out what his sentence is. And they're all there trying to figure out if this man appears to be the kind of person who would commit a crime, flout the law. So man, it's going to be something. What are we going to do? Maybe I'll take the week off. Because damn, if it's going to, oh, they don't have cameras. It's not going to be, we can't, but still, whoa. Okay. Other things in regard to justice in, excuse me, in these here United States. Um, one of the things that just enraged me during the pandemic was clearly all the fraudsters who were scarfing up taxpayer dollars meant for other people who were in financial or business oriented distress during the pandemic. I'm always stunned by how many people are quite willing to try to game the system and take what isn't theirs. And the fraud during the pandemic, everyone knows, off the charts. As a matter of fact, my guess is that most of us know somebody, whether we know them or not, whether they know they did it, who in fact dipped into that, pot of gold when they shouldn't, who fraudulently applied for, the Paycheck Protection Program, and there were these other programs to help businesses that were in distress. Um, the size of the theft is so mind-boggling that I mean, a lot of people are going to get away with it, but not everybody. And in fact, the feds have already, it doesn't get a lot of play. It probably gets play in the jurisdiction where it happens. You find out a guy who ran a restaurant, took millions that shouldn't, and that becomes a local story. But the feds have charged already more than 3,500 people around the country for pandemic fraud, and they have seized more than $1.5 billion. They've gotten that back. But what we're talking about here is an estimated $200 billion. And $200 billion is actually 17% of the over $1 trillion that the federal government made available in pandemic loans. So I don't know. I sure as hell hope that the folks who did it are getting nervous. And the only way they're going to do that is if the feds just doggedly keep on picking these jerks off one by one. And the problem is there is a statute of limitations, and the Justice Department is asking uh, Congress, good God, anytime you have to say they're asking Congress, you know, you might as well hang it up. But they're asking Congress to extend the statute of limitations and to fund their efforts to claw back these billions of dollars that our fellow citizens have absconded with. Um, they've been trying to catch up to this unbelievable tsunami of fraud. And if you look at who's working on it, it's pretty impressive. Impressive. In addition to the U.S. attorneys' offices around the country, there are hundreds of people in more than 40 offices of inspectors general working on, you know, for various agencies working on pandemic fraud investigations, as is the FBI, as is the Secret Service, as is the Postal Inspection Service, as is Homeland Security, and the IRS, Criminal Investigation. Uh, but here's what we know: all of those entities are underfunded because the people in power like to protect people in power. And so regulatory agencies and IRS, people who could go after all the billionaires who don't pay a penny, those are always underfunded and impossible to come up with the amount of legal expertise to take on the deep pocketed billionaires and their legal teams. Unbelievable. No. Oh, hey, did you notice this about Mount Etna? I mean, I've been the world is, you know, going berserk in so many ways, and nature, you know, exhibiting its wonders to us, as we all noted in the eclipse, or some of us did. But Mount Etna, I've never seen a picture of this before. Maybe you have. There's a picture in the New York Times that it's a riot. Mount Etna is putting out smoke rings. I mean, just perfect. Did you ever have like a relative or a friend back in the day when everybody smoked who could, like, you know, make those perfect smoke rings? Well, it turns out Mount Etna can. Perfect. Perfect. I'm looking at a picture and there's like 8 perfect perfect circles of smoke, and they're flying off over Mount Etna. And they've all come out of that volcano. Turns out um, that Mount Etna has a vent, and this is how it works, that is perfectly circular. So a release of steam and heat and all that kind of stuff coming out of that perfectly circular vent creates this amazing ring. Says here that this happens when enough pressure builds up so the magma inside the crater propels condensed gases, mostly the water vapor, through the vent and into the air, where you see these amazing smoke rings. And they hang there for as much as 10 minutes. And in the case in this picture, there's a whole bunch of them just hanging there, as if Etna is like saying, hey, watch this. Anyway, Etna has done this before, And the first time that it was noted was in 1724. But it doesn't do it all the time, and it's doing it now. So, Google it if you haven't seen the pictures. It's just a riot. And speaking of, again, forgive me, the eclipse, um, I do want to say that something wonderful happened during the eclipse. We weren't aware that it was happening, but it happened because people were looking up. And so the result was internet usage, internet traffic, especially in that path of the totality that I had, made my way to. The biggest dips in traffic on the internet happened there, but literally in the totality path, internet traffic dropped as much as 60% at the time of the eclipse. So, you know what humans look like now. They're always looking down. They're always looking at the damn screen, right? And here, for one shining moment, they were looking up. And that became quantifiable in terms of traffic to the internet. Even in places where it wasn't, a totality, the traffic dropped 30% in New York. But it was the states like Maine and Ohio, Arkansas that saw these huge drops of 40 to 60%, which I love that idea. I love that happened. And I also want to say, and I'm so glad that I lucked out and was watching it with, this disparate ragtag group of Americans who never would have found themselves together. But there we were, and exchanging glasses and comments and wonder. That unifying thing that happened, which was as wonderful as the event itself. But I am so glad that where I was when the totality happened, nobody shouted. Nobody, in fact, there was this blackness and this quiet. And you could hear, I'm sure I might have said, oh my, you could hear this like, wow. But nobody screamed, or I see in some places where people started applauding. And I'm thinking, no, 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 shut the F up. And somehow that disparate group I was with, that was what we all did. We shut up in awe. And I'm so glad. I think I would have felt assaulted if people had started screaming. And the only other thing I have about this is, so I have these two pairs of glasses here. I was thinking I'll throw them out. And then I saw today, no, 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 no. There are groups that take eclipse glasses and make sure they're available because they don't, like, there's not an expiration date on them, so that other people can use them where there is going to be an eclipse someplace in the future. And one place that, only you can go online and find places you could ship yours to, or you can drop them off at any Warby Parker eyeglass store, okay, until the end of this month. and they donate it. They're collecting them for a group called Astronomers Without Borders, and that group took in millions of these eyeglasses after the last uh, total eclipse here in 2017. So just in case, if you want them to go, and they make sure that people in Africa, South America, Asia, have access to. They get these glasses to wherever the action's going to be, and people can enjoy the eclipse safely. Um, Hang on, I'm seeing an email I might want to share with you. Uh, this is Kurt. He said he put a chart together using data from what, the Department of Defense and a teachers group, some education group. And he came up with this: for 10 years, including during the Afghanistan war. Good God. People are dying from gunfire in schools at a higher rate than in the entire military. All branches, all theaters of war. Whoa. Whoa. Well, it's why this is such a great thing, that decision that came off. Get out of there. God damn it. I'm just trying to see his chart and I can't. Um, okay. God, I hate this. I keep doing cancel and I can't get. No. You know what? I'm not meant to live in this. I want a simpler world. I don't want all this fucking technology, even when I love it, which happens occasionally. Okay, I got other stuff. Hang on. I can't get my. I totally screwed this up though, and I can't see your emails now. I can try. Okay. Um, I'm trying. There we go. Oh, hey, did anybody watch Jeopardy? Okay, all you Jeopardy fans. There's a woman here in Pittsburgh who won the what's called the invitational, which is they invite some of the best players ever back and they go up against each other, and she beat them. She won last night, and this woman knows everything. I mean, you pick a subject, she knows it. It doesn't matter if it's science, geography, music, popular culture, classical, opera, animals, literature. She's on it. She's amazing. Her name is Victoria Gross, and she lives here. And the weird thing about her is I looked her up, and so she won $100,000 last night. And she is what the guy, if any of you were listening the day I told you about this guy, the American who went off to London and changed the way the Brits, who are like, they're the quiz masters, they're the ones who love these kinds of quiz games. But he went over there and blew them all away and showed them that you can approach this in a very American way, which is nose to the nose to the grindstone, um, flashcards, study. Don't just go on the fact that, I got this photographic memory. I read all the time. I know so much crap. No, 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 no. You treat it like a job. And I looked her up. That's what she's done. And in fact, she and he, the guy I told you about before, this young guy in his 20s, he and she are both on the same show that I've never seen, called, I think, Chasers or something like that. And they are part of the show, and as part of the show, they make money all the time because they know everything. And that kid I told you about had this outrageous dream of making his living as a quiz show contestant. And boy, has he ever pulled it off. And there's another one living right here in Pittsburgh who's done the same. Victoria Gross. I can't even begin to imagine how much money she makes. Whoa. And simply I mean, she works it. She probably never stops learning. And I do want to say this. It doesn't mean they're wise. Knowing stuff, being able to, like come up with a factoid at a moment's notice is not an indication of wisdom. It's an indication of having a ton of facts at your fingertips. Um, and I don't, would we call it knowledge? Yeah, I guess so. But it doesn't mean you're smart about things that are really important. It means you have that certain skill. Um, I would imagine some of the wisest people on earth may, in fact, be illiterate. Some of the wisest people on earth may, in fact, not have jobs that we would admire. Um, so, yeah, wisdom and knowing stuff are not one and the same. So I don't I'm not as awestruck by these folks. I'm awestruck more by this work ethic involved in doing what they do, and obviously having a capacity to, yeah, they have brains that work very quickly at retrieval. And speaking as an older person, I just want to say that begins, going south. The speed of retrieval definitely goes south as you age. Just saying. Um, oh, I also forgot to I was doing the talking about legal cases. Weisselberg going back to Rikers, Trump sitting there as a effing defendant starting on Monday, God willing. And there was another case that hasn't gotten a lot of attention, but another one of these bad actors. When I was in theater school, I took great umbrage at the police calling perpetrators actors because I wanted to be an actor and I wanted that to be a term of some respect. Never has been. But yeah. And okay, bad actors. So a federal judge in New York again yesterday sentenced another bad actor. This one, a young woman. Her name is Amy Harris, and she's a jerk, a real jerk. She's the one who stole the diary of President Biden's granddaughter. Mm-hmm. I think this might have been Hunter's daughter, stole her diary, thought, this might be worth something to somebody, and knew exactly who to sell it to. Sold it to the creeps at Project Veritas, these SOBs who go around tricking people into saying things that are then taken out of context and whatever. But they operate over on the right wing. And this woman, yeah, she sold Biden's granddaughter's diary to Project Veritas for $40,000. And it was all because Project Veritas wanted to turn that around. It was just weeks before the election. And when, Trump's paying off porn stars, these types are, looking for any dirt wherever they can. The amount of, geez, horrible humans. Anyway, she got all of a month in jail. However, she's on probation for 3 years, 3 months of home confinement, and she has to pay back the ill-gotten gains that she got. What a vile person, just vile. So, in case you had missed that one, just wanted to say there is some justice, not a lot. Here's a great story. Did you hear the one about the pigeon that was hanging around the animal shelter? Yeah, I kid you not. So I take you to, I think, Maryland. Somewhere in Maryland, there's an animal shelter. And people began noticing this pigeon hanging out there. And the pigeon, in fact, would land on people's heads or shoulders or backpacks and try to get into the shelter as they went in. Well, that wasn't happening. They weren't about to let this bird in, but the bird refused to leave and hung out over and over again. The people in the shelter began to think this is no ordinary bird, or this bird doesn't have very good survival skills here. The bird's trying to get into a place with a bunch of cats in it. What the hell? And the bird kept it up, and clearly had no fear of animals, of humans, of dogs, of cats. And I'm looking at a picture of the bird when it's all cleaned up. It's a pigeon. It's a lovely looking pigeon. And so what these guys at the shelter decided is there's no way that this can be a wild bird. I mean, if it is a wild bird, it must have been domesticated in some way, but it had no identification on it and whatever. So after about a week of the pigeon hanging out and trying to, get into the building on people's heads and shoulders, they did take it in. And they decided that they would try to see if somebody wanted to adopt it. And lo and behold, yes, a lot of people wanted to adopt it. And it says here, the people who call pigeons rats with wings are so wrong. They're just so wrong. Pigeons have served us. They're smart as hell. We bred them, we domesticated them to work for us, right? Carrier pigeons. We use them like we, employ dogs. But then turns out we didn't need them anymore, and so we went on and we started calling them rats with wings. Anyway, a woman in I don't know, in New Jersey, I think, ended up. She grew up and had birds in her home, and she thought this bird would be great for my two little boys. And she's a single mom, and she drove all the way down and got the bird, and the bird is happy. There's a picture of the bird sitting in one of her the kid's car seat. She doesn't want to ever be in a cage. If a cage is put out, she goes nowhere near it. She's used to being free range, and the woman reports that the bird now rides on her kids' heads all over the house. She says, when I take a shower, she sits on the shower head. She just loves always to be with us. And here's something I didn't know. The woman bought some cloth pigeon diapers that the bird wears, if that's the thing that you would be concerned about. So now she's got this pigeon. They figure it'll live another 15 years. And that bird is one happy bird. And how smart is that bird to know to make its way to an animal shelter that finds homes for animals who need them? Anyway, that story's in the Washington Post if you want to take a look at it, but it made me happy. It also reminded me of something I forgot. When I was in, I'm going to say probably middle school, a new girl came to town. Her name was Kathleen Schultz, I think, and she invited me to her house once for dinner. And here's what I remember about the dinner. I do not remember what we ate. I remember being blown away by the fact that they had a bird. It was like a parakeet kind of a bird. They had a bird who was loose and flying around the house. It even landed on the table while we were eating. They were totally not, and nobody said any. I can't remember anything being said. And, I'm trying there not to gawk, worrying the bird's going to poop on my plate or something. But there it was. And that's the first time I realized that you can live with a bird and not cage it. You can let it be free. I didn't see it wearing any diapers, though, I'll tell you that much. Oh, her name was Kay Schultz. Wow. Now, why was that name come back? And somebody I met yesterday, I can't remember. Okay, well, that's it for me, guys. I done did it, even though I was a little not quite right here technically. Um, anyway, I'm off. I'm busy. I'm out there. I don't think my outro music will play. Let's give it a shot. Okay. Okay, go ahead. No, it won't. Okay, so that's it. I will say, uh, nothing that was said on this program shall in any way be interpreted as the views of Pittsburgh City Paper or anybody having anything to do with it. And in fact, come to think of it, they probably disavow everything I said, including me. Okay, there's that. Did the disclaimer, and I'm out of here. See you tomorrow.